Yeah.
Hello?
Good afternoon,
Hi,
folks.
how are you? Good. You calling?
Uh, I would just like to say that I have a little problem with the word fall right this afternoon because I did one, and that was of a different meaning, of course, but those don't feel very good for a 90-year-old, I'll tell you that. So, one of the things I wanted to talk about was maybe get some help here is the guy that figured out how much plutonium to use in bombs, and from that point on, it just mushroomed. They could do whatever they wanted to. And nowadays, they have, you know, tactical bombs. And I don't know what those are like, but it must be something. So, that guy's name was J. Robert Oppenheimer. And he had, I remember him because I happened to be 90 years old. And I remember when that whole thing was going on, except we never knew about it. I was living in a farm in Linden, Washington, just south of Linden, Washington, on Weiser Lake. Really looks like a pond. And what we would hear on the news, radio, of course, was what was going on in Europe and what was going on in Japan and all that until the Germans surrendered, and they did surrender prior to our actual, I think I got this right, our actual development of the nuclear bomb. Of course, Japan didn't take that option, and they got the heck blown out of them. And I remember the discussion about that time, when people were saying, well, why did they have to drop it on a city? Why didn't they drop it in the ocean or something, just to show what was going to happen? And of course, that's all afterthought. And the what we understood later was the reason for the dropping of the atomic bomb on Japan was to preserve and save American lives that would have been lost had that war gone on and on, because the Japanese just would not quit. And so that worked, though. But it took two for them to come across with the surrender, and still it was a we will surrender, but we want to have this. And what that was their emperor would remain the emperor, even though he may not do very much, because as you recall, maybe, General MacArthur spent 25 years in Japan, turning that country around, getting rid of all the weapons and so on, and getting it back to normal. Only they got it back to an American normal, didn't get it back to a Japanese normal. Got it back to an American normal. And that's what it is still today, with some fluctuations here and there. But when the war was going on, I lived in this town, Auburn, Washington. And I was, let's see, I was, probably about in the third or fourth grade, fifth grade maybe. Yeah, then fifth grade. And one day, I went to school, and I should tell you that there were quite a few Japanese kids that were in school, and they were gone. I didn't think anything about it. We get flu, kids get flu and all kinds of stuff, and the polio was going around to beat the nick at that time, and so a couple of days went by, and then I said, "What happened to those kids?" And then I got told what happened to those kids, and as you recall, probably that. Their parents, which included them, would be in a camp. All of their stuff, like in Kent, was a great truck garden area where cabbages and stuff. I remember going out there and what the heck was it, like 10 cents an hour or something, and a bottle of Coke, hoeing cabbage, just hoeing cabbage, and then we'd have races with the other kids hoeing the cabbage and stuff like that. But those were gardens everywhere. We used to drive out to there, and there were these big jars with pickles in them and stuff like that. Just a great place to go shopping on the road. And as you know, that all disappeared. And it is now full of, well, there's still some truck gardens out there, pretty nice ones. But there's a lot of concrete and steel and glass in the place of where this wonderful stuff was. Anyway, let's see, when we moved to Linden, or did I already move there? No, I didn't move there. Okay. We moved to Linden, which was actually Meridian. I went to school in Meridian for a while. And when I went back to see Weiser Lake, it looked more like a pond than anything else, because, you grow up and so on. But anyway, time went on a little bit, and my folks had to deal with rationing, gasoline rationing, and of course there were 5 of us. And their rationing was in respect to how much of that would be available to you. And of course Mom always had a victory garden out in the back, and she dutifully tended to, and which was really good because it was good stuff. And I got to milk the cow. That was my job. I got to milk the cow. But I didn't mind it at all. I had a heifer of my own in 4-H.
Do you remember when the Japanese kids came back to school?
No, I wasn't there. Let me go on with the story a little bit. Then one day, my dad came home. It's the only time I ever saw him drunk. And he wasn't really drunk. He was just kind of hiring a kite and playing with Mom and all of that. And he said, the war is over. So I went next door to Mr. Smith's house, and that house is still there, surrounded with weeds. And I said, he was a chicken farmer, by the way, and mostly white chickens. And he had a family, and one of his daughters was Marilyn, and the other one worked in Bellingham at night. But I ran across the field because he was out in the back. He was doing something or other, I think probably repairing fence or some darn thing. And I said, Mr. Smith, Mr. Smith. And in those days, we used Mr. and that sort of thing. I said, the war's over. He said, where'd you hear that? Well, it came over the radio. It did? Yeah. Some kind of a new bomb they dropped, an atomic bomb. And Mr. Smith just summarily thought I was full of beans. But that's what it was. And Zeno was his name. I think he's long gone. Anyway, that's how we all found out about the end of the war. And of course, it took things a while to settle down, and then it blossomed with massive, well, people had a lot of money, and so they could buy a lot of things, and houses were going up. What do they call them? Levittown. They were going up, and row after row after row after row, because the soldiers were coming home. Soldiers and sailors and Marines were coming home, and the Coast Guard too. And of course they were, whatever. Anyhow, so the thing about atomic bomb was it began to get a lot of discussion as to why would you drop that bomb and kill 180,000 people? And he said, well, they massaged it for a while, and then they had to drop another bomb to get the emperor to sign the surrender. And so.
Did it scare you as a kid knowing there was an atomic bomb that was dropped? Or did you ask your dad what an atomic bomb was?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know. He didn't know. Practically nobody knew. They kept that secret just wonderfully well. The Manhattan Project and all the stuff that went on in eastern Washington, it was a secret. And they kept the secret for, about 4 or 5 years. They kept that secret. And that had all come to fruition after Einstein, with his formula, told people, you better do something because Germany's working on this. And if Germany gets it before you do, that's it. Anyway, that was my experience of all that, and we'd had blackouts too down there in this town. We have to pull the shades down, and all the lights would be out. And the reason for the blackout was so that Japanese aircraft could not find a city or a town or stuff like that. And the other thing that was there were barrage balloons. You ever hear of barrage balloon? It's a gas balloon, helium. I think it's helium, better be. That they would have slightly up in the air. It'd be up. I would guess. I don't know, 100 feet, 150 feet, something like that. And it was tethered with cables. And the reason for the barrage balloon was the tethered cables, which would intercept any Japanese aircraft that had the intention to fly into our area, which was this area. Yeah. And I can remember going to Sunday school. My mother always made me go to Sunday school. And that they would take the class up on a knoll. And I wonder which one it was, but it was on a knoll here. And we'd go up there, but the rules were, if you see anything that looks different, don't touch it, don't go near it. Because the thought was, or the information was, that they were sending germs over in those balloons. It turned out that wasn't necessarily the case. They were actually sending incendiary bombs, which when they light, they light up and burn things. So that didn't last too long, but very few Japanese planes made it to this part of the country.
In your 90 years, so you had the atomic bomb that went off, right, when you were living, and you were just a kid, and you see where the war tactics are today and how they have evolved and how there's always the fear of a nuclear bomb. And that's always the big fear that I remember in my 57 years, is that what out of all of the war, I don't know what the right term is, out of all of the weapons used in war in your lifetime, was the scariest potentially for you? Was it the atomic bomb?
In my lifetime, yeah, absolutely. Before that, though, it was all that other stuff that they had that they could pop off. And hell, I had a 30-06, and the kid next door, his dad was a major in the Army. He loaned me his Abe rifle. He had several rifles. Then we went up on the knoll and practiced shooting. Can you imagine kids doing that these days?
Yeah.
And so, that was just an outing, just afternoon. Nobody came to watch us or anything. It was just a couple of kids, and, we were behaving ourselves pretty much. So, but the whole fear situation, I think the real fear that I had about nuclear bombs was the Cuba crisis. They're too close. They could just zoom those over and just blow the heck out of big cities, and that was, Kennedy did what he had to, and that was a scary thing.
Yeah.
Now, they're probably everywhere. But the interesting thing about that was the tag is that there's, on Ancient Aliens, there was the time when the nuclear missiles, they're all now, spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on that stuff. That they couldn't. They shut them down. Mm-hmm. And I think that's good. Mm-hmm. I hope they keep doing that. But it's a frightening thing. And whether this country, whether this world actually, will get up from its adolescence in some measurable time with some good leaders, I think we need that so badly, so badly.
Yeah.
Well, I can't think of anything else at the moment. I'm going to research Oppenheimer a little bit. I was wrestling with my computer and stuff, so I'll have a better shot at it.
Well, why don't you say goodbye to everybody?
Why
don't you say goodbye to everybody and see you next week?
See you next week, folks. Have a good week. Don't fall down anywhere. It hurts.